Your home, your sanctuary, until the locks fail and the shadows outside decide to step in. Welcome, uneasy listener, to Nightmare True Horror. Tonight, we shatter the illusion of safety with 7 true accounts of home invasions, where the unwelcome guest brings terror to the hearth. What is the most terrifying sound you could hear inside your own walls when you know you're alone? Share your deepest fears in the comments. And if you find a morbid fascination in these violations of sanctity, ensure you are subscribed. The threshold has been crossed, and the tales we tell tonight will remind you that the most horrifying part is often not if they get in, but when and what they reveal about the fragility of our security. Dare to listen until the chilling and the banging started at 2:47 a.m. I know the exact time because I was staring at my phone, scrolling through insomnia-fueled social media when the first thunderous impact shook my front door. The sound was so violent, so sudden, that I dropped my phone on my chest and felt my heart slam against my ribs like a trapped bird. Bang, 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 bang. Not knocking. This was the sound of fists, or maybe something harder, trying to break through solid wood. I lived alone in a small rental house on Maple Street, the kind of quiet suburban neighborhood where the biggest crime was usually stolen Amazon packages. I'd moved there 6 months ago after my divorce, specifically because it felt safe. The kind of place where you could leave your car unlocked and find it untouched in the morning. Open the door. We know you're in there. The voice was male, rough, with the kind of edge that comes from years of cigarettes and rage. My blood turned to ice water. I grabbed my phone and rolled off the couch where I'd fallen asleep, pressing myself against the floor. We're not leaving, Martinez. You owe Tommy 15 grand. Martinez? My name is David Chen. I'd never heard of any Tommy, and I definitely didn't owe anyone $15,000. My biggest debt was my student loan, and Sally Mae didn't typically send enforcers to break down doors at 3 a.m. Another series of impacts, harder this time. I could hear the wood splintering. These weren't just fists. They had something heavy, a sledgehammer maybe, or a battering ram. I crawled toward my bedroom, staying below the windows, and grabbed the baseball bat I kept beside my bed. My hand shook so badly I could barely grip it. I had bought the bat when I moved in, thinking it would make me feel safer. Now it felt inadequate, like bringing a toothpick to a gunfight. Last chance, Martinez. Tommy's been patient, but his patience is done. But his patience is done. I fumbled for my phone to call 911, but before I could dial, the sound changed. No more rhythmic pounding. Now I heard the sick crack of wood giving way, the screech of hinges torn from their frame. They were inside. Heavy footsteps echoed through my small house. At least 2 sets, maybe 3. I pressed myself against my bedroom wall, clutching the bat, trying to make myself invisible. Check the bedroom, one voice commanded. Closer now, maybe 20 feet away. Kitchen's clear. Another voice reported. Living room too. TV's still warm. He was just here. Martinez. The first voice again, bellowing. Hiding won't help. We'll tear this place apart. I needed to think. These men were looking for someone named Martinez who owed money to someone called Tommy. This was obviously the wrong house, but explaining that to armed men who'd just broken down my door seemed unlikely to end well. My bedroom window faced the backyard. If I could get it open quietly, maybe I could slip out and run to a neighbor's house. Mrs. Patterson next door was elderly, but she kept her porch light on all night. If I could reach her. The bedroom door exploded inward. The man who filled the doorway was massive, 6'5" at least, with arms like tree trunks covered in tattoos. Behind him stood another man, shorter but wiry, holding what looked like a tire iron. Well, the big man said, his voice a low rumble. Found our Martinez. I managed to croak, raising my hands while still gripping the bat. This is a mistake. I'm David Chen. I just moved here. Nice try, the wiry man said, stepping into the room. You think we're stupid? This is 1247 Maple Street. Martinez lives at 1247 Maple Street. You're Martinez. My mind raced. Check my wallet, I said desperately. my driver's license. My name is David Chen, not Martinez. This is a case of mistaken identity. The big man laughed, a sound like gravel in a cement mixer. Mistaken identity. That's the best you got. I can prove it, I said, my voice rising with panic. My mail, my lease agreement, everything. Shut up, the wiry man snapped. He moved closer, raising the tire iron. Tommy doesn't want excuses. He wants his money. That's when I noticed something that made my blood freeze. The big man was wearing latex gloves. So was his partner. This wasn't just a collection visit. They'd come prepared for violence, prepared to leave no fingerprints. Please, I whispered, just look at my ID. 5 seconds. If I'm lying, you can do whatever you want. But if I'm telling the truth, if you're telling the truth, the big man said, pulling something from his jacket that glinted in the dim light, then we have a problem, because we can't have witnesses. A knife. 6 inches of steel, sharp enough to split hairs. The world seemed to slow down. I realized with crystal clarity that these men didn't care if I was Martinez or not. They'd broken into my house, seen my face, and now I was a liability. Whether I owed Tommy 15 grand or not, I wasn't walking away from this. The wiry man stepped forward with the tire iron raised. I swung my bat wildly, catching him in the shoulder. He stumbled backward, cursing, but didn't go down. Son of a bitch, he snarled, and came at me again. I dodged past him toward the door, but the big man blocked my path. The knife flashed toward my chest. I twisted away, feeling the blade slice through my t-shirt and nick my ribs. Warm blood spread across my side. I was going to die in my own bedroom, killed by mistake, because some deadbeat named Martinez had the same address as mine. That's when I heard it, sirens in the distance, growing louder. The two men heard it too. They exchanged a look that spoke volumes. Time to go, the big man said. What about him? The wiry man jerked his chin toward me. Leave him. If he's smart, he'll keep his mouth shut. But as they turned to leave, the wiry man spun back and swung the tire iron at my head. I ducked, but not quite fast enough. The metal caught me above my left ear, and stars exploded across my vision. I went down hard, tasting blood. Through my blurred vision, I watched them disappear through my ruined front door. A few seconds later, I heard a car engine start, and tires screech as they fled. The sirens were closer now. Mrs. Patterson must have called the police when she heard the commotion. I lay on my bedroom floor, bleeding from my head and ribs, trying to process what had just happened. When the paramedics arrived, I told them everything. The police took my statement while the MTs bandaged my wounds. Detective Morrison seemed skeptical of my mistaken identity theory, until he checked the property records. That's when we discovered the truth that made my blood run cold. There had been a Martinez, living at 1247 Maple Street, until 3 weeks ago. Carlos Martinez, a small-time drug dealer who'd apparently borrowed money from the wrong people. He'd moved out suddenly, leaving no forwarding address, right before I moved in. The landlord had been so eager to rent the place that he'd rushed me through the paperwork. The utilities were still in Martinez's name. Even the mailbox still had his name on it. To anyone watching the house, it would have looked like Martinez was still living there. Lucky thing Mrs. Patterson called when she did. Detective Morrison said, these guys weren't planning to leave witnesses. But luck had nothing to do with it. Mrs. Patterson was deaf and hadn't heard anything. She'd called the police because she'd seen someone breaking into my house. Someone who'd been watching, waiting for the right moment. Martinez himself. Security footage from the neighbor's doorbell camera showed him crouched behind my shed, recording everything on his phone. He'd been using me as bait, letting Tommy's enforcers find the house and discover their mistake, probably planning to use the footage as leverage later. The police never found Martinez or the two men who'd broken in. The car they'd used was stolen, abandoned 3 blocks away. No fingerprints, no DNA, no leads. I moved out the next day, found a new apartment across town, made sure the utilities were in my name, changed my phone number. But I still wake up sometimes at 2:47 a.m., heart pounding, listening for the sound of fists on wood. Because the most terrifying part wasn't the knife or the tire iron. or the moment I thought I was going to die. It was realizing how easily someone else's life can become your nightmare. How a name on a mailbox can put you in the crosshairs of violence you never earned. And knowing that somewhere out there, Carlos Martinez is probably still using innocent people as human shields, still running from debts that follow him like shadows, still leaving others to pay the price for his choices. I learned to sleep with a chair against my door and keep my phone charged beside my bed. I learned that strangers' mistakes can become your emergency. And I learned that sometimes the most dangerous person in your life is someone you've never met. The wrong house, the wrong name, the wrong night. But for Martinez, it was exactly right. I never believed in monsters. At least not until my 5-year-old son, Ethan, whispered something I'll never forget. It was late one evening in mid-October, chilly autumn air pressing against our suburban home. Ethan had climbed into my bed shaking, his eyes wide with fear. "Daddy," he said softly, pulling the covers tight around him. "The man from the hallway watches me sleep." I chuckled nervously, trying to hide the creeping chill running down my spine. Kids have imaginations, right? Monsters under the bed, boogeymen in closets. Still, something about Ethan's pale face and trembling voice unsettled me deeply. I reassured him there was no one there, tucked him back into bed, checked his closet and under the mattress, even shined a flashlight into the empty hallway. Nothing. All was silent except the steady hum of the furnace. But sleep didn't come easy that night. Something nagged at the back of my mind. Ethan wasn't prone to night terrors. He'd never mentioned imaginary people before. By morning, the sun's reassuring warmth washed away some of my anxiety, until Ethan mentioned the man again over breakfast. "He came again, Daddy. Daddy." He stood in the door. I paused, coffee halfway to my lips, trying to steady my shaking hand. Ethan looked genuinely terrified. My heart started pounding uncomfortably. To ease my fears, and Ethan's, I installed a small camera in his room, linked directly to my phone. If anything moved, I'd know. A week passed without incident. I was ready to dismiss Ethan's fears as just imagination. Then, on a cold, moonless Thursday night, a notification buzzed on my phone, jolting me awake. Motion detected in Ethan's room. 2:41 a.m. Sleepiness evaporated instantly. My blood turned to ice as I opened the live feed. The grainy night vision screen showed Ethan asleep, peaceful and unaware. But standing in his doorway, barely visible in the shadows, was a figure, a man, just standing there, unmoving, watching Ethan silently. Every nerve in my body screamed. Panic surged. How did he get in? Why wasn't he moving? My hands shook violently as I dialed 911. By the time police arrived, the figure had vanished. Officers searched our house, found nothing, and after checking every lock and window, told me gently it was probably just shadows playing tricks. Stress. A glitch, perhaps. I wanted desperately to believe them, but when they left, I reviewed the recording again, this time carefully. The figure had stood there for 9 full minutes, motionless, patient, predatory. No glitch stands like a statue for 9 minutes. I felt sick. The next day, I installed extra locks, alarms, sensors, everything money could buy. For days afterwards, sleep was impossible. Ethan started sleeping with me, his tiny hand gripping mine tightly each night. But even behind locked doors, paranoia twisted at my gut. Every creak in the old house sent jolts of adrenaline through me. A week passed quietly. I began to hope maybe the man had been scared off by the police visit. Maybe he'd moved on. Ethan seemed calmer, and life returned to something almost normal. Until one morning, I found Ethan's bedroom window slightly ajar. A single muddy footprint smeared the carpet beneath. Terror surged again, drowning out reason. I couldn't understand why someone would target Ethan. I felt helpless, trapped in my own home. Nights became a nightmare of anxious pacing, watching cameras, waiting for the figure to return. Then, one rainy midnight, My phone buzzed again. Ethan's room. Motion detected. 2:41 a.m. My breath caught painfully as I opened the feed. The man stood closer this time, near Ethan's bed, leaning slightly forward as if studying my sleeping son. Rage and fear overwhelmed reason. Rage and fear overwhelmed reason. Without thinking, I grabbed a baseball bat, adrenaline fueling me, and sprinted silently down the hallway. Bursting through Ethan's door, heart thundering, I swung wildly, but connected with empty air. Ethan woke screaming, terrified by my sudden appearance. The room was empty, the window closed tight, no sign of forced entry. But on the floor, glinting faintly, lay a single photograph, creased and yellowed with age. I picked it up, dread settling heavily into my chest. It was Ethan at the playground, taken weeks earlier. On the back, scribbled in jagged letters, "He's mine now." Police took fingerprints, searched tirelessly, questioned neighbors, but found nothing. No leads, no suspects. Ethan and I moved away quickly afterward, but peace remained elusive. Even behind new locks in a new house, I jump at shadows. Ethan still sleeps beside me, too afraid to be alone. Months have passed. The police never identified the man. I've nearly convinced myself he's gone for good. Until yesterday. A small envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address. Inside, another photo. This one of Ethan at his new school, smiling brightly, unaware. On the back, in the same jagged handwriting. Did you think you could run? Sleep no longer exists. Every shadow, every noise makes my heart stop. I'm trapped in a living nightmare, always watching, waiting. Because whoever this man is, he's patient, careful, always lurking just beyond reach. Ethan and I aren't safe. We never were. Because monsters are real. Because monsters are real. They don't hide under beds or in closets. Sometimes they stand silently in doorways at 2:41 a.m., watching your child sleep, waiting patiently, never blinking, never moving, never letting you forget. He's mine now. The drip of a faucet still sets my teeth on edge, that faint gurgle pulling me back to those nights when I wasn't alone. I'm 29 now, living in a new city in Colorado, working as a graphic designer, my sketchbook filled with safe, boring patterns. But last year, in that small Wisconsin town, my routine wasn't mine. It was his. Ethan, my ex, turned my life into his blueprint, and no matter how many locks I change, his eyes are still out there watching. I tried to tell the cops, my friends, but their shrugs cut deeper than his knife. It started with the lilies. Every Monday, I'd find a bouquet on my windshield in the grocery store lot. White petals stark against the glass. Ethan's favorite, from when we dated 2 years back. And Jenna, a barista then, always doodling coffee cup designs, trying to rebuild after our breakup. At first I thought it was a mix-up, a florist's error, but the notes began tucked under my gym locker. "You look tired, Jenna? Sleeping okay?" The handwriting was his. That jagged J from love letters I'd burned after his jealousy turned to tracking my every move. My heart thudded, the slam of the locker door echoing in the empty gym. I told myself it was a prank, someone else, but my gut knew better. I spotted him a week later, in his black Jeep Cherokee, parked across from my CrossFit class, engine off, staring. His face was shadowed, but the hum of his presence was unmistakable. Like when he'd memorized my Google Maps timeline. I froze, the crunch of gravel under my sneakers loud as I hurried to my car. The cop said, "No crime in parking," but my hands shook, the lilies scent clinging to my jacket. Reason said he was just stuck, grieving the breakup, but intuition screamed he was building something, a plan. My apartment started shifting. I'd come home to my bookshelf rearranged, books sorted by color, his old habit. My coffee mug in the freezer, handle frosted. The beep of my keypad lock, 913, my birthday, felt too familiar, like he'd never left. I changed the code, but the cops found no forced entry, their voices flat, get new locks. One night the shower stopped, and the drain gurgled wet wrong, not like pipes. I knelt, flashlight shaking, and found a hairline crack in the porcelain, a tiny camera inside, its red light blinking. I crushed it, the screech of metal sharp, my pulse roaring. He'd been watching for weeks, maybe months. I started sleeping with a knife, serrated, camping grade, under my pillow, its weight a cold comfort. Thursday night, a scratch woke me, not the door, but my second floor window. My breath caught, the rattle of the screen like claws. Then his voice frayed, sing-song. Jenna, it's cold out here. Ethan, desperate, unhinged. My phone was in the kitchen, the creak of my floorboards loud as I gripped the knife. Sweat slick on my palm. The scratching turned to thuds. Glass shaking, his shoulder slamming, stronger than I remembered. I lunged for the closet, heart pounding, but he was inside. The crunch of broken glass under his boots. Moonlight striped his face, thinner, bearded, eyes wild, a zip tie dangling in his hand like a noose. You changed the locks, he hissed, stepping closer. After all I did for you? The squeak of my bed frame was deafening as I backed away, knife raised. He lunged, and I swung, the blade catching his forearm, blood welling. He howled, then laughed, high-pitched manic. Still wearing that cheap perfume I bought. He spat. You're mine. His motive was obsession, a need to own me, to rewrite my life into his routine. The knife clattered as he grabbed my wrist, twisting. But a yap saved me. Mrs. Lowell's Pomeranian next door, barking, floodlights blazing. Ethan froze, head cocked, like a predator caught. He bolted, leaving blood on my sheets, his fingerprints on the knife. Cops found his Jeep 3 miles away, empty, no trace of him. They called it a domestic incident, said he'd fled. But I knew he was out there, waiting, watching. I moved, new city, new code, no lilies. But last week, a bouquet appeared on my porch. White petals stark, a note inside. Missed you, Jenna? The shower drain gurgled last night. A wet, sucking sound, too familiar. I burn every note, keep the knife close, but every drip, every scratch outside, feels like Ethan. His camera still blinking, his routine still ticking, my name still his. The city's hum can't drown the gurgle, those eyes. I'm safe, they say, but Ethan's out there, his lilies blooming. My routine still is to break. My name is Mark, and Baxter, my scruffy terrier mix, is pretty much my entire world. Living in a third-floor walk-up in a bustling city and working long hours as a graphic designer meant a dog walker was a necessity, not a luxury. I found paws and paths, a local service online. They assigned me a walker named Alex. Alex was okay at first, a bit quiet, maybe a little socially awkward, but Baxter seemed to like them well enough, and that's what mattered. I gave Alex a key, showed them Baxter's routine, the usual. For 6 months, it was fine. Then Alex started getting weird. They'd show up late, or sometimes early, looking disheveled, eyes a little too bright. Baxter, usually ecstatic for his walks, started hesitating at the door when Alex arrived, a low whine rumbling in his chest. Alex began oversharing, rambling about personal problems, then abruptly clamming up, their moods swinging like a broken gate. One afternoon, I came home to find Alex still in my apartment an hour after the walk should have ended, just sitting on my sofa staring blankly at my bookshelf. Just admiring your collection, they'd said, their smile not quite reaching their eyes. The unease was a knot in my stomach. The final straw was when my neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, mentioned seeing Alex letting themselves into my apartment on a day they weren't scheduled, staying for nearly an hour while I was at a client meeting. No walk for Baxter, just being in my space. I confronted Alex. They became defensive, then tearful, then unsettlingly calm, claiming it was a misunderstanding. I fired them, politely, but firmly. I asked for the key back. They handed it over, their expression unreadable. I changed the locks the very next day, just to be safe. Or so I thought. A week passed. I found a new dog walker, a sweet college kid. Things started to feel normal again. Then, I came home from work last Tuesday. The deadbolt on my apartment door was unlocked. My heart lurched. I always double-locked it. I pushed the door open slowly, calling Baxter's name. He came trotting out of the bedroom, tail wagging. But there was a nervous energy about him I hadn't seen since Alex's last few weeks. Nothing seemed obviously out of place in the living room or kitchen. My laptop was still on the desk. My TV on the wall. No drawers pulled out. No signs of a frantic search for valuables. Maybe I'd just forgotten to lock the deadbolt. Unlikely, but possible. Then I walked into my bedroom. It was a violation, not a robbery. My drawers were open, clothes pulled out, but not strewn around. They were examined. My personal papers on my desk, neatly stacked before, were now subtly rearranged. My favorite cologne, one I rarely wore, was sitting on my nightstand, uncapped, its scent heavy in the air. Nothing was broken. Nothing valuable was missing. But my most private space had been meticulously, silently invaded. Someone had been in here, touching my things, breathing my air. And the way they'd moved, the things they'd focused on, it felt like they knew me, knew my habits, knew what would unsettle me the most. A cold dread seeped into my bones. The locks, I changed them, but how sophisticated were the new ones? Could Alex, in their increasingly erratic state, have picked them, or made a copy of the old key before returning it? The erratic behavior suddenly felt like a chilling understatement. This wasn't just someone losing their grip. This felt calculated. This felt like a message. The police were sympathetic but practical. No forced entry, nothing stolen. Could be a prank, Mr. Davies, Officer Miller said, though his eyes held a flicker of something else. Or maybe you just had a momentary lapse, left the door unsecured. He suggested I install a security camera. I already had a small, discreet one I'd bought after firing Alex, hidden on my bookshelf, covering the living room and front door. My hands trembled as I pulled up the footage on my laptop. Hours of an empty apartment. Then, around 2 p.m., the front door opened. Alex. They slipped in, quiet as a shadow, moving with an unnerving familiarity. They didn't look around for valuables. They went straight to my bedroom. The camera didn't cover that area. They were in there for nearly 30 minutes. Then they emerged, paused in the living room, their gaze sweeping slowly over my things, a strange, almost proprietary look on their face. They picked up a small framed photo of Baxter and me from a side table, looked at it for a long moment, then carefully placed it face down before letting themselves out, gently closing the door behind them. The police now had something concrete. They put out a bolo, but Alex had vanished. Their apartment was empty, their phone disconnected. It was as if they'd evaporated. The days that followed were a blur of fear and hypervigilance. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow sent my heart racing. The scent of my own cologne now made my stomach churn. The feeling of violation was profound. This wasn't about theft. It was about terror, about someone using their intimate knowledge of my life, my space, to dismantle my sense of security, piece by piece. Their inside knowledge was the weapon. A week later, a small, plain envelope arrived in my mailbox. No return address. Inside, a single Polaroid photograph. It was of me, sleeping in my bed, taken from the foot of the bed in the dark. My bedroom door in the photo was slightly ajar. The date stamp in the corner was from 2 nights ago, after I'd changed the locks a second time, to high security deadbolts. After the police report, after Alex had supposedly vanished, the motive was chillingly clear now. It wasn't revenge for being fired, not just that. It was an obsession, a desire to control, to invade, to possess not my belongings, but my peace of mind, my very sense of self. The erratic behavior had been the unraveling of a deeply disturbed individual. And I, and Baxter, had unknowingly been in their orbit. I moved, broke my lease, packed up my life, left the city. I have a new apartment now, in a new town, with more locks than I can count and a security system that would rival Fort Knox. Baxter sticks close to my side. I don't use dog walkers anymore. The police never found Alex. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, I swear I can catch a faint whiff of that cologne. A scent that no longer means anything but betrayal and a cold, lingering fear. And I know that the most terrifying invasions aren't the ones where they take your things, but the ones where they take your peace, leaving behind only the chilling knowledge of how easily the locks on your life can be undone by someone you once trusted with a key. My name is Emily, and for years, my annual 2-week solo hiking trip in the Sierras was my sacred ritual, a chance to unplug, recharge, and escape the relentless demands of my job as an ER doctor. This year, for the first time, I decided to hire a house sitter. My apartment, a cozy pre-war brownstone unit, was filled with plants that needed watering and a slightly neurotic cat, Mittens, who loathed catteries. I used Home Guardian Angels, a reputable online agency with glowing reviews and background check sitters. They assigned me a woman named Ms. Agnes Thorne. Her profile picture showed a pleasant, grandmotherly type with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Years of experience, her bio read. Treats every home as her own. If only I'd known how literally. The initial meeting went smoothly. Miss Thorne was quiet, polite, asked all the right questions about Mitten's feeding schedule and the alarm system. She had a soft, almost whispery voice, and a way of observing everything with a still, unnerving focus. I gave her the keys, a detailed instruction list, and left for my mountain escape feeling relatively at ease. The first week of my trip was bliss. Crisp mountain air, stunning vistas, no cell service, pure peace. Then, on day 8, when I briefly hiked to a ranger station to check in, I got a garbled voicemail from my neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, an elderly woman who lived across the hall and kept an eye on things. Emily, dear. Lights. Strange hours. Thought Agnes left. Call me. The connection was terrible. The rest of the message lost to static. A small worm of unease began to wriggle in my gut. Agnes was supposed to leave after the first 7 days. As per our agreement, I had a friend scheduled to take over cat duties for the second week. I tried calling Mrs. Henderson back, then the agency, then even Miss Thorne's number. No answer, just endless ringing or straight to voicemail. The unease grew into a knot of anxiety. I cut my trip short. The 2-day drive back was fueled by caffeine and a growing sense of dread. I pulled up to my brownstone late on a Tuesday night, a full 3 days before I was due back. The lights in my apartment were on. Not just a lamp in the living room, but every single light, blazing. My heart hammered. I fumbled with my keys, but they wouldn't turn in the lock. The deadbolt was engaged, but my key just spun. Changed. Why would the locks be changed? I buzzed Mrs. Henderson. She opened her door instantly, her face a mask of relief and worry. Oh, Emily, thank God, she whispered, pulling me into her apartment. I was so worried. Agnes Thorne, she never left. I saw her yesterday, clear as day, watering your window box. And the lights, dear, on all night, every night, and sounds like someone moving furniture, late. She tried knocking, she said, but Miss Thorne had either not answered or spoken through the closed door, saying I'd extended her stay. A lie. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was something else. Something deeply wrong. We called the police. When they arrived, I explained the situation. They knocked on my apartment door. Ms. Thorne, this is the police. Could you open the door, please? Silence. Then, a soft, whispery voice from within. Agnes Thorne's voice. I'm afraid that's not possible, officer. This is my home now. Emily was kind enough to let me stay indefinitely. Her tone was calm, almost serene. Utterly delusional. The police were firm. After a tense standoff, with the threat of a forced entry, the door finally unbolted. Agnes Thorne stood there, wearing one of my silk robes, a serene, almost beatific smile on her face. "Welcome home, Emily dear," she said, as if I were the visitor, though I do prefer you call before dropping by. The apartment was transformed, but not in a violent, ransacked way. It was more insidious. My furniture was rearranged. My clothes were still in the closet, but mixed in with garments I didn't recognize. Sensible, old-fashioned dresses, sturdy cardigans. My books were still on the shelves, but interspersed with volumes on herbal remedies, local church histories, and unsettlingly, several well-worn true crime novels focusing on squatters and identity theft. My personal photographs on the mantelpiece had been replaced with pictures of strangers, smiling, elderly couples, children in stiff, old-fashioned clothes, and the smell, my familiar scent of lavender and old books, was gone, replaced by a cloying Swedish odor, like potpourri mixed with something vaguely chemical. Mittens was nowhere to be seen. "Where is my cat?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "Oh, Mittens." Agnes' smile didn't falter. He didn't quite fit with the new ambience. I found him a more suitable arrangement. She gestured vaguely towards the back of the apartment. It was a slow, creeping invasion. She hadn't just occupied my space. She was erasing me, replacing my life with a bizarre, curated version of her own. The police, after confirming my identity and the original house-sitting agreement, escorted a still protesting Agnes from the premises. She left without a struggle, just a lingering, pitying look at me, as if I were the one who was confused. The suitable arrangement for Mittens, I found later, was a small, freshly dug patch of earth in the tiny communal garden behind the brownstone, marked with a crude wooden cross. The chemical smell in the apartment? Yet the police found several large, industrial-sized bottles of odor neutralizer and heavy-duty cleaning agents hidden in a locked utility closet Agnes had apparently claimed. The true crime novels, they were filled with highlighted passages, notes in the margins, almost like a how-to guide. The agency, Home Guardian Angels, was horrified. Agnes Thorne, it turned out, had impeccable, but entirely falsified references. She was a ghost in their system, a phantom who had expertly manipulated her way in. Her real name, her history, remained a mystery. She had no fixed address, no family they could find. She simply moved from one unsuspecting home to the next, a cuckoo in the nest. I sold the apartment. I couldn't stay there, couldn't scrub away the feeling of her presence, the scent of her quiet, insidious occupation. The locks had been changed, but my sense of security was shattered far more effectively than any forced entry could have achieved. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night, convinced I can hear soft footsteps, smell that cloying, Swedish odor. And I know that the most terrifying invasions aren't always loud and violent. Sometimes they come with a gentle smile, a soft voice, and a set of keys to your life. Slowly, silently, making your home their own, until there's nothing left of you at all. You never think much about what you share online until someone decides it means you belong to them. I'm not famous, just a regular person with a modest cooking channel and a couple thousand followers spread across YouTube and Instagram. My day job's in accounting, but I film recipes at home in the evenings. Nothing flashy. Comfort food, bad jokes, a peek at my ancient but reliable kitchen. It always felt harmless, even a little anonymous. I figured in a sea of influencers, I was basically invisible. Turns out, you only need one person paying too much attention. The first time, Fan for Life 22 commented, "It was under my grandma's lasagna video. Love this. Reminds me of my childhood. Love this. Reminds me of my childhood. Please try the taco. Stand on Maple next." I thought, cool, a local follower. Didn't think much of it, but the username kept popping up. Every post, every video, always first. "That mug from your college is back. You filmed near the window, right? Good light at 9 a.m. That's the mural on 4th and mine in your coffee pig." It felt flattering at first, Someone out there genuinely cared about my content. Then it got weird. You look tired on your morning walk today. Hope everything's okay? That blue hydrangea bush is blooming. Your favorite? Right. Didn't mean to startle you jogging by the park. Next time I'll say hi. I never posted my running route. Never said which flowers grew outside my apartment. I started combing old videos, checking for background clues. My friend Mia, who does it, helped sweep my accounts for leaks. Nothing obvious, no addresses, no slip-ups. Mia tried to reassure me. Probably someone who lives nearby. Or just really, really into your channel. But I stopped replying to Fan for Life 22. Blocked the account. For a while, things were quiet. I felt a little foolish for letting it get to me. Then the gifts started. A rose on my doorstep, wrapped in a napkin from the taco stand. A book I'd mentioned wanting. No note. Just left on the porch. Finally, a photograph. Me, walking my dog. Snapped from behind a hedge. On the back, neat handwriting. You look happiest in the mornings. I bought new locks. Put a camera at my front door. Double-checked every window at night. My hands shook as I told Mia, who offered to let me crash on her couch. I said no. I wanted my life back. But the fear seeped in. Slow and persistent. I started seeing shadows where there were none. Once, I swore I saw someone duck behind a car as I pulled into my driveway. I told myself it was paranoia, but every day it got harder to believe. Last night, I was up late editing. The house was silent but for the whir of my laptop. Around midnight there was a sound, faint, metallic, deliberate. Not the wind, not a branch, a scraping. I froze, muted my laptop, listened. The scraping came again, closer. Then the soft, sickening squeal of metal prying against wood. My heart pounded so loud I thought it would give me away. I crept to the kitchen, flicked off the lights, and peered around the corner. My side window. The screen was being eased up, inch by inch. A pale hand slipped inside, groping for the latch. I ducked behind the counter, phone in hand, dialing 911 on pure instinct. I whispered, "Someone's breaking in. Please, hurry." Outside, footsteps crunched over mulch. The porch light flicked on. Shadows danced across the far wall. A whisper, hoarse and almost pleading, drifted through the open window. "Just want to talk. You always seem so lonely in your videos." My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I heard the window slide higher. The police sirens, when they came, sounded like salvation. The hand jerked back. I scrambled to the window just in time to see a figure in a dark hoodie vaulting my fence and disappearing into the night. The cops arrived, lights flashing, painting my kitchen in red and blue. They dusted for prints, found the pre-off screen in the bushes, and took my statement. "You did the right thing," one officer said, but his eyes said, "There's only so much we can do." Mia insisted I stay at her place. I packed a bag and left that night, locking every door behind me. The next morning, my inbox was flooded. New accounts, new comments. "Why did you leave?" "I just wanted to be friends." "I know you're scared, but you don't have to be. Maybe I'll see you again soon. Miss your blue mug." I shut down all my accounts, scrubbed what I could from the web, changed my routines, moved apartments. I never shared my new address, never posted another video. But sometimes, a new account appears. A comment under an old post, a package on a friend's doorstep just for me. Always unsigned. Always something only a true fan would know. I double-check my locks every night. I keep the blinds drawn. I look over my shoulder on quiet streets. The scariest thing isn't that someone tried to break in. It's knowing the boundary between online and real life is thinner than we think. That a stranger can reach through the screen and find you. And that sometimes, all it takes is one open window for them to step right into your life and never really leave. My name is Chloe, and I'm a creature of habit. Every night before bed, it's the same routine. Brush teeth, set alarm, double-check the front door lock, and always make sure my bedroom closet door is shut tight. It's a deep walk-in closet, the kind that came with these older city apartments. And I've just always had this irrational thing about sleeping with it open. A silly quirk maybe, but it's mine. It was a Tuesday, around 3 a.m., when I first woke with that prickling sense of wrongness. You know the feeling, when something in the familiar landscape of your darkened room is just off. My eyes focused. The closet door. It was ajar. It was ajar, just a sliver. A thin black gash against the faint moonlight filtering through my blinds. My heart gave a little thump. Had I forgotten? No, I never forgot. I distinctly remembered clicking it shut. I lay there for a moment trying to rationalize it. The old building settling? A draft. But the air in my room was still heavy. Annoyance warred with a tiny, unbidden tendril of unease. I sighed, pushed back the covers, and padded across the cool wooden floor. As I reached for the brass knob, the door let out a faint, almost imperceptible creak, as if shifting under an unseen weight. And then from the darkness within, a whisper, so soft I almost missed it. A dry, papery sound. Don't! I froze, my hand hovering inches from the knob. My breath caught in my throat. The word hung in the silence of the room, chillingly clear. It wasn't my imagination. It wasn't the house settling. It was a voice, low, genderless and undeniably inside my closet. My mind raced. Was I dreaming? Still half asleep? I pinched myself, hard, nope, wide awake. My first coherent thought was, burglar. My entire body went cold. I backed away slowly, silently, my eyes fixed on that sliver of blackness. I fumbled for my phone on the nightstand, fingers clumsy with adrenaline. I didn't call 911. Not yet. What would I say? There's a whisper in my closet. I crept out of my bedroom, heart hammering, and did a sweep of my small apartment. Front door still double locked, windows secure, no sign of forced entry. No one hiding under the bed or behind the shower curtain. Nothing. Nothing. Just the oppressive silence and the terrifying knowledge of that voice. Sleep was impossible. I spent the rest of the night on the sofa, a kitchen knife clutched in my hand, jumping at every creak. By morning, exhaustion had dulled the sharp edges of my fear, replacing it with a shaky, insistent doubt. Had I imagined it? Stress? A vivid nightmare bleeding into reality? I had to know. With the bright morning sun streaming in, the closet looked normal. Just a closet. I flung the door open, clothes hanging neatly, shoes lined up. Nothing out of place, no hidden person, no sign that anyone or anything had been in there. Relief washed over me, so potent it made me dizzy. I'd been overtired, stressed, that was all. But the next night, I woke again. 3:17 a.m. The closet door ajar. That same thin black gash. This time I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the heavy mag light I kept for emergencies and strode towards it. As I reached for the knob, the door creaked again, and the whisper, a little louder this time, more insistent. Don't! Close it. This was not my imagination. This was real. I slammed the door shut, my hand shaking, and wedged my desk chair under the knob. I didn't sleep. The following days were a blur of caffeine-fueled paranoia. I started noticing small things. A book on my nightstand, slightly out of place. The scent of my lavender soap in the bathroom when I hadn't used it. A faint, almost imperceptible scuff mark on the floor near the closet, as if something heavy had been dragged. Was I losing my mind? Was I losing my mind? Or was someone subtly, systematically trying to make me think I was? The don't became a nightly ritual. I'd wake, see the door ajar, hear the whisper if I even thought about approaching. The chair barricade made no difference. I started sleeping with my bedroom door locked. But the feeling of being watched, of a presence just beyond that thin wooden panel, was suffocating. My work suffered. My friends noticed my frayed nerves, my haunted eyes. The climax came after a week of this torment. I was at my breaking point. Sleep deprived, terrified, and furious. Tonight, I wouldn't just close it. Tonight, I would open it. I had to. I armed myself with a Maglite and a can of pepper spray I'd bought. I took a deep breath, yanked the chair away, and threw the closet door wide open, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. For a heart-stopping second, nothing. For a heart-stopping second, nothing. Then my light found it. Not a person, not initially, but a section of the back wall of the closet, where the old plaster was crumbling, looked loose. A panel, almost invisible unless you knew where to look, and from behind it, a faint, musty odor, the smell of unwashed bodies and stale air. And a sound, soft, rhythmic breathing. My blood turned to ice. Someone wasn't just in my closet. Someone was living in the walls of my apartment. The whispers, the moved objects, the door always ajar. It was them, emerging at night, moving through my space. A silent, unseen tenant. Before I could scream, before I could even process, a hand shot out from the gap, pale and grimy, fingers like talons, grabbing for my flashlight. I stumbled back with a cry, pepper spray raised. A figure began to emerge from the narrow opening, gaunt, dressed in dark, tattered clothes, their eyes wide and feral in the sudden light, like a cornered animal. It was a man, older, his face a mask of desperation and something else, a chilling, proprietary anger. This was his space I was invading. Shouldn't have opened it, he rasped, his voice the same dry whisper from the darkness. Told you. Don't. He lunged. The next few moments were a blur of terror and adrenaline. I sprayed wildly. He roared, a sound of pain and fury clutching at his eyes. I didn't wait. I ran out of the bedroom, out of the apartment, screaming for help, not stopping until I was out on the street, the cold night air hitting my lungs. The police found him still in the closet, disoriented, enraged. He'd been living in a crawl space between the walls, accessible through that hidden panel, for weeks, maybe months. He'd been a maintenance worker in the building years ago, knew its secret passages. When he'd fallen on hard times, become homeless, he'd remembered. He'd been surviving off scraps, sneaking out at night to use my bathroom, my kitchen. A silent, parasitic presence. The whispers were to keep me from discovering his sanctuary. The moved objects, a way to make me doubt my sanity, perhaps hoping I'd move out. They took him away. The panel was sealed, but my apartment, my home, was tainted, violated in a way I could never unfeel. I sold it, of course, moved to a new building, one with solid walls and no deep, dark closets. But sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, I still find myself staring at my closet door, half expecting to see it ajar, to hear that faint, papery whisper from the darkness within. And I know that the most terrifying monsters aren't always the ones you can see. Sometimes, they're the ones living silently beside you, separated only by a thin layer of plaster, and a single whispered word, don't. The silence returns. But it's a tainted quiet now, isn't it? 7 invasions, 7 shattered sanctuaries. The unease of knowing your safest space can be breached. It lingers. It lingers. The true horror lies not just in the act, but in the chilling realization of vulnerability, often with a twist that leaves you breathless. Which story left you checking your locks, questioning the shadows in your own home? Questioning the shadows in your own home? Confide your lingering dread in the comments. Your experiences make the darkness more communal. If these chilling truths have found their mark, subscribe to Nightmare True Horror and illuminate that like button. Until the next creak on the stairs reminds you that you might not be as alone as you think. Good night, and please be safe.